The Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula will today brief members of the media on the recently approved National Rail Policy White Paper, the policy seeking to position the rail sector as the backbone of South Africa's national land transport. Newzroom Afrika's Pelane Phakgadi is in Pretoria, standing by for us to give us an update there. Pelane, good morning to you once again. It's about trying to revive this sector and make it the backbone of the transport sector that it once was. Lots of criticism about why it has been allowed to fail, basically.
Why it has been allowed to fail, I think that is a very key question. And of course, as you've seen, the dilapidation of some of the railway in stations in some places, and the work now is to try and rejuvenate the sector in itself and position it to be the go-to transportation of choice, and also to try and ensure that you bring about support and even sympathy from the people who use this transportation on a day-to-day basis. It is a cheaper option only if it is, of course, very much reliable, and you've seen a lot of people complaining about its reliability. But let me bring in Ngwako Makaepea. He is the Deputy Director General there in the Department of Transport, responsible for rail transportation. The Minister is here. It's a key moment for South Africa where yet another policy is being brought about, and the policy looks very good on paper, quite a number of advantages, and there are disadvantages, yes. But how do you foresee yourself going about implementation of the key pointers that you want to mention now?
Thanks very much, and good morning to South Africans. We believe as South Africa that, and the Department of Transport in particular, that this is an opportunity moment where we have the national rail policy, which now puts the basics, because the sector has been operating for a number of years without this rail policy. And we believe it will be able to bring key reforms across the board, because the policy vacuum, if it exists, all rail players are able to then do issues which some are not supposed to do, and obviously there are blurring lines in terms of that. So there are key number of issues that we are putting forward as part of the reforms, which covers both, one, freight, and secondly, passengers. And I think they talk to the issues that you have talked about, of the issue of performance, both in passenger and additional capacity, in terms of how it's going to help us to move goods and in a government achieving its movement from road to rail.
Of course, I mean, that will assist as well, should it be implemented accordingly, the issue around road carnage that we've seen because of the number of trucks, the freight that we've seen on the road. What is the plan as far as implementation? Do you also give yourself some sort of timelines to ensure that at this particular time frame you should be able to say the policy, at least a commendable percentage of it has been implemented?
Yes, the policy itself, in terms of its vision, it has a vision of 2050 in terms of what we see as full implementation. But what we have done in terms of the implementation framework, which form part of the policy, is that we have short objectives, which has a time frame horizon of 2023. We have some which goes towards 2050. 2030, and lastly, those that goes towards 2050. So initially, in terms of how we need to deal with, which is one of the key elements that we've put, is the establishment of a central rail planning component, because previously state-owned enterprises were able to plan on corridors. Now government has taken that responsibility, where they'll plan what are the key strategic corridors for the country in terms of both the movement of goods and secondly in terms of passengers, so that when private sector comes in, because they are interested, they are able to know what are those corridors which they need to invest, where we'll be able to direct them. So for us, we see that as a game changer.
Yes, as you round up, and of course that particular last point that you touched in is the issue around the private sector. And one of the disadvantages of this is that it will need intensive capital for yourself to reach complete compliance by 2050, as already put it. And what are those plans put in place that the investors, when they do come in, at least they find a level playing ground, not only for small business but as well as the large investors?
it's government's role to be able to put an enabling policy framework. And I think in how we want to deal with this matter, it's really introducing the economic regulatory framework, because we know the rail sector is one of those sectors that has been seen as a monopoly, and we have as a department established what we call the interim rail economic regulatory capacity, which is helping in terms of these key elements of introducing the private sector. We are working very closely with the operators, Transnet on the piece that they are going to, they've published. They are coming to us to be able to consult on the rules of the game. But you will remember that the department itself is having the Economic of Regulation Transport Bill, which is currently in Parliament, and it becomes a key element of being able to manage these particular issues moving forward. So those are our contribution, and will provide an oversight to ensure that the state-owned enterprises are not referees and players at the same time, but they work very closely with the private sector. And for the first time, with this third-party access that we're introducing, the private sector are going to access the rail network from their point of origin towards the end of the city, whereas previously they were only running on the branch line networks and ending somewhere. So they own the whole value chain. If they bring their own rolling stock, which we see as another funding element that will help government, because government used to fund both the rolling stock, which is your train and wagons, and secondly the infrastructure. Now we'll be able to focus on the infrastructure, ensure that those that comes and are interested, and we have already have engagement with the Rail Industry Association, area being one of the some key elements on the money. There is appetite, and there are studies that have been done. So
let me cut it short there. I'm sure I've seen a lot of appetite as far as concerned, and of course we'll be bringing in the minister when he does arrive. Thank you very much. That's Ngwako Makaepea there, the DDG for rail transport within the Department of Transport, and he did indicate that the full implementation of this, it's foreseen to be 2050. That is about 28 years from now, and with the program beginning now, there are some short-term goals that are set. 2030, there's one of 2023, that is about next year. I'm sure we'll be able to get an indication as to which are those low-hanging fruits that the department wants to get a clinch of, and then all the way to 2050. What is the full foresight that they want to implement in? And that is, again, totally reigniting a once dominant economic hub, that is that of transportation, in particular to the industrialization of the country that wants to see itself being playing a pivotal role, not only from the OR Tambo International Airport, but as well as from the King Shaka there in KwaZulu-Natal, so that there can be able to be adequate movement of goods and services that are procured in the country and being exported as well. A key element, should it be implemented. Quite a number of policies in the country, Collie, that are there, very little implementation, but here the hope and the will of the not only political principals but as well as administrators may just see another economic hub being reignited and reopened.